I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving and with their families and everything. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. The food was amazing, which I mostly cooked. My mum was here. It was a nice, stripped down, simple Thanksgiving. Table settings were wonderful. TV shows we watched were wonderful. The food was just so great. I made this corn pudding casserole. It was phenomenal. A little bit cheesy, but fluffy like a cake. Little bits of corn in. It was so delicious. My mum loved it. And she can be quite critical about dessert things or sweet things or pudding things that I make. So she really, really did love that. We had duck, mashed potatoes, a cranberry, wine gravy, and string beans. And, it wasn't too much food, but it was just the right food. So, very happy about that. I was just going over some of the conversations that me and Bam had and the voicemails that she sent me. And I guess at the time, and like I said, I'm not saying that I'm a sweet, innocent little angel here when it comes to Bam, because I was friends with her for a time, or if you can call it friends. Is she really friends with anybody? But, I was close to her for a time, and I did take part in some of the drama. So I'm not pretending that I'm an innocent, sweet little angel. But I left her channel back in February, and as far as I'm concerned, it was the right time to leave. And I was just listening to over some of our conversations, and it didn't occur to me at that time. I hope you don't hear what's going on behind me. So much noise the bin men make in the morning. It didn't occur to me at that time how much she was trying to influence me. It didn't occur to me at that time how much she was all about herself. She's so self-serving. And I'm going to go into more detail about that later on. But also, I've been listening to Rabid, the channel, the guy that Bam became very friendly with in the last few months of their time on YouTube. And I'm sorry, Rabid, but you knew exactly what she was like before you started speaking to her. Everyone had heard those Amber tapes, and you actually had a discussion with her about the Watts case. You both discussed the Watts case, even though Bam repeatedly said that she won't cover the case on her channel. She spoke about it many times, and you and Bam discussed the Watts case on her channel. So you knew what Bam was about, and you knew what she was like, and you continued to speak to her. Now, look, I don't mind Rabid. Rabid has been to my channel a few times. He's left some comments under some of my videos, and he's been very pleasant. So I'm not lecturing Rabid, or I'm not even calling him out here. What I am saying is that, when he claims that he didn't know the extent of Bam's behavior or what she thought, I don't quite believe that fully. I mean, I admit that I knew exactly who she was before I started speaking to her. I just didn't know I didn't know how she operated in terms of, her mechanics, so to speak, and the interworkings of her behavior. But for you to say that you didn't know that Bam was saying some of these things, I don't buy that at all. But like I said, Rabid has been to my channel a few times. We've had a few pleasant exchanges. I have no problem with the guy. I think his channel is decent. I don't agree with every opinion that he has, for sure. But, he's a laid back kind of guy. But for you to say that you have no clue what Bam was all about, or what she was like, or some of the things that she'd said, I don't completely buy that. I left Bam's channel back in February after she sent me an email. I made a personal choice not to go back to her channel. And I saw that she was becoming more delusional with the Emma Kenny stuff. Emma Kenny's trying to take my content. When she first talked about Emma Kenny trying to take her content, I allowed her to that delusion. But when she repeatedly started going on about it, and then she even talked about possibly going to court about it, I thought, no, this woman is gone. And then, the personal things she would say about people and how she was beginning to behave. She was beginning to target more and more people. And I just wanted this to be about Claire Morgan and the topic at hand, but she went all over the place. And whoever she thought that she could, whoever she thought was an easy person to go after, she would go after. And once I started seeing a repeated pattern of behavior, I decided, no, this is not. I'm so glad that she did send me that email, because that email that she sent me was my cue to never go back. And she never said that I couldn't come back to her channel or anything like that. It was a dry as a bone email, but she wasn't saying that I couldn't come back to her channel, and she wasn't saying that she'd stop being friends with me. But, that was just my cue to say, look, I'm done here. I could see that there was a pattern of behavior developing with her, and I'm going to talk about that as well. So, Rabid, you sat there while she willingly and frankly told you that what happened was basically Shanann's fault. So I don't believe that you were as naive to her behavior and what she was saying as you claim to be. That's just my personal opinion. I never heard the live stream where she apparently went after me and EK. She'd told me about it. I'm so glad that her claim, or the claim that was made that I had said something about Sheila's accent, I'm so glad that that's been put to bed and under the water, because I've never even said anything about Sheila's accent at all in any of my videos. Never spoken about Sheila's accent to anybody on YouTube. There's nothing about her accent that I would ever it wouldn't even do an impression of her accent, because she just has a normal Yorkshire accent. So this claim that I'd said something unkind about Sheila's accent, I'm glad that that's a claim that has now been unsubstantiated and proven to be false, because that's just not something that I would ever have done. And that was very puzzling to me, because I just don't make fun of people like that. That's just not my style, not something that I would ever do. I have done impressions of accents on my channel, just like a comedian would do. But, it would be somebody that was famous, or somebody that had more of a, Donald, like a Trump accent or a Brooklyn accent or something like that, I would never, there's nothing about Sheila's accent that I would ever have gone after. So that was not, that was not the case. And just like I'm not Sobia Khan either, so I'm glad that has been discredited, because Bam has been discredited. I mean, one of my, a commenter made a comment on my channel. And by the way, when it comes to comments, sometimes you leave comments when I'm sleeping. So if you don't see your comment pop up immediately after you've left it, or within half an hour, it doesn't mean that I haven't approved it. We're on different time scales, depending on where we live. Remember, I live in London. You might live in New York or LA or Florida or whatever. So I'm getting comments a lot when I'm asleep at night or at 2:00 in the morning. And so, this is a comment that I didn't see until I woke up this morning at around 8:00. And it was from somebody who was a regular visitor of Bam's channel. And, she was saying, and I'm not saying that you, as her subs, all believed everything that she said. A lot of you probably just sat back and just thought, whatever. I'm not saying that you didn't have your own personal opinions about what, things that she said. I'm not saying that you all believed everything that she said, but just some of the things that this person has said about Bam, claiming that she was educated, a model, dating a surgeon, etc. I mean, the woman is a fantasist. Now, it is very, very obvious that Claire Morgan was not a lawyer. So she was right about that, yes. And she figured that out. But I do believe, even though Claire Morgan isn't a lawyer, I do believe that there were some embellishments made by Bam regarding Claire. That's what I think now. That's what I do believe. Also, she would say things that just didn't quite ring true to me, and I would raise my eyebrows. She would say, Frankie's trying, wants to take my house from me. And I thought, I never ever bought that. Never bought it, not even for a second. I don't buy the surgeon boyfriend either. And her grandson is just more intelligent than everybody else, and he's going to get $1 million house. Well, if you're sitting on that much money, why do you need PayPal donations? Just a lot of things that she said that didn't quite add up. One of the things that I'm most proud of, not only that I left back in February and I didn't stay till the end until she found, till I found out the whole, true story of her. But one thing I'm most proud of is I never took part in what she was doing with regard to MRB, who, by the way, I am not a fan of. I'm not a fan of MRB, but I do think the way she went after MRB was wrong. And she would love to have the sub count that MRB has. She would love to have the influence that MRB has. But I think for the most part, the reason why she went from MRB was because MRB has been, at least in the past, friendly with the Rusex. And her absolute disdain for the Rusex is beyond anything I've ever seen in my entire life. And for people who have said about me as well, which is also not the case, that I think I'm smarter than everybody else. You don't hear me bragging about qualifications and degrees I've got because I don't have any. My parents are educated. Both my parents are well educated and have degrees. I went to an all-girls private school with nuns in the English countryside. But I was never, and I've said this repeatedly, I was never academic. I don't have academic smarts. I was always good at English, and I was a good dancer. I was good at sport, at least running. I was one of the best spellers in my class. However, overall, I was not an academic person. And like I said, my parents are more than me, especially my dad. He's more academic than I am by far. And he didn't go to the private schools that I went to. So people who say that I brag about how smart I am, that's not something that I do. That's something that Bam repeatedly did, and it was a turn-off. Oh, I've got all these qualifications. Oh, I'm educated. Or I'm smarter. I went to university. That's not something that I've ever gone on about. I've never said that I was smarter than anybody else in terms of academics at least. What I do have is perhaps I do have a little more insight into the human mind and personality traits than the average person. And there are people who have more insight than I do. I'm not saying that I'm better or more intelligent than anyone else when it comes to human behavior or figuring people out either. But, this claim that I've said that I'm smarter than other people is absolute nonsensical, because I've repeatedly said that I went to a private all-girls school, but I was not academic. I'm more intelligent when it comes to figuring people out. Once I've figured somebody out, that's it. I've figured them out. And I'm very good at figuring out the mechanics of how they operate. One of the things that Bam said that turns out not to be the case, and I've known this for quite some time, is that crowd justice, you had to be a British citizen to open a crowd justice. That is not the case. The crowd justice site was funded and started in 2015 or thereabouts in the UK. And initially it was just UK residents, for UK residents. But later on, it expanded to America, where if you were a US citizen, you could open a crowd justice. So that's something that Bam said, Bam would repeatedly say you had to be a UK resident to have a crowd justice. That's not the case. It started as a UK thing, but it spread to America. Another thing that I will say, I did enjoy my conversations with Bam. There is a voicemail that I sent to her where I said, I love getting your messages, Bam. I really love interacting with you. And I did, because Bam is very good at engaging you. And she's very good at making you feel special and making you feel like you're in on something. I plead no innocence in this arena. I'm not completely innocent. That's I've made that clear. I did enjoy my friendship with Bam. I did speak to her on a regular basis, and I told her that I very much enjoyed listening to her voicemails and listening to her messages. And at first, she seemed like a reasonable person. Bam is very articulate. That's one thing I will give her. She's a very articulate, well-spoken person. She's somebody who can command attention in the way that she speaks. She has a commanding voice and she's very articulate. She knows how to articulate. There's no question about it. She doesn't have any problems stringing a sentence together. Another thing I will say, though, is listening to her messages again and going over the voicemails between us, where I have admitted I'd said to her, I really enjoy getting your voicemails, Bam. One thing I did say to her, sometimes when I spoke to her, she did come across a little down, a little bit moody, but she told me that she did get that way around the autumn time. She preferred summer. But one of the things that I picked up re-listening to the voicemails between each other, the background noise where I am is driving me nuts because they're building a house just opposite to where I am. And this is just what London is like. One thing I can say is that she thought the topic of Claire Morgan was her work, was her thing. So when I was speaking to her, whenever she saw people live streaming about Claire Morgan, she interpreted that as people taking her work and reaping the benefits from it. That's how she spoke about people that were live streaming about Claire Morgan. She didn't like it when people spoke about Claire Morgan. Claire Morgan was her thing. And looking back on it, I tried to steer her away from talking about other people in a negative way. I don't know why, but I just didn't like that. And she always had some bone to pick with somebody, always. The irony of it is once when she was telling me that she had an issue with somebody live streaming about Claire Morgan, she was in that person's live stream probably about 3 weeks after she'd complained about that person. So she was very duplicitous. She might say one thing to your face and something else behind your back. Now the question is, was she really ever a friend to anybody? I don't think she really was. I think that, and I'm going to say this in honesty, the reason why she became friendly with Rabid is because of what he was saying about the Rusex and because of his issues with MRB. And that's the only reason. She became friendly with Rabid. And I'm going to be honest here, Rabid. This is a channel about truth and honesty. She became friendly with Rabid because Rabid had an issue with MRB and Rabid was saying things about the Rusex. And anyone that had issues with the Rusex or MRB was going to be somebody that she was going to cozy up to. So, she became friendly with Rabid because she had an agenda. Nothing more, nothing less. Someone was keen to remind me that BAM has done things to help people online as well. And I don't want to leave that out. That's important. When I discuss anybody on my channel, it's important to tell the full truth and discuss all the facets of their personality. We all have good and bad in us, including myself. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm aware of these things. I actually didn't know that she'd helped people either financially or with their animals or things like that until I started speaking to her on a personal level outside of YouTube. How do I view that now? The fact that she did help people at times? I've got conflicting feelings because on one hand, she was just all about herself. She wanted credit for everything. She wanted recognition for everything. Like I said, the Claire Morgan thing was supposedly her thing and she didn't like anyone else talking about it. She really didn't like when her subs were in other channels. She really didn't like when her subs were in other live streams. She didn't like that at all. And the potential money or donations that her subs might give to other people. I know that she got some donations just before her channel went. I know that some people had donated to her, and I personally believe that she was online a lot for that. I think she has money issues. Hence the reason why I'm not really convinced on the surgeon boyfriend and the high IQ and education, because even if you have a disability, that doesn't stop you from having a job, does it? What's the point of an education if you don't use it to empower yourself and better yourself and go out there to get a good job that you can support yourself and your family? I mean, it seems to me that she depended solely. And I'm not gonna tell you everything that she told me, because I'm not ready to, at least not as yet. There are some things that I'm going to keep because she told me certain things in confidence. And regardless of how she turned out, I'm just not ready to it's just not good practice. If somebody tells you something in confidence and they tell you not to tell anyone, then it's not good practice to do that. To go against that. Look, I understand what she's about, but as she did tell me some things in confidence, I don't think it would be in good practice or good faith for me to go and tell the world. But I know for a fact, based upon something she told me, that she did depend on donations. That's all I will say about that. So, she very much presented herself as a blonde who was, looked great in a bikini, who Hefner noticed. The whole Hefner thing that she was a former model, I don't buy it for a second. And it's nothing to do with how she looks at all. I just think that was just another one of her claims, and the way she would use self-flattery to boost her ego and self-esteem. I mean, she's full of self-flattery. And I never thought I would say this, but she is exactly in the same category as Justin Lears, Carboy. They're similar. I'm going to show you what I mean in a while. But they're similar they have similar personality traits. Full of self-flattery, need fuel and supply are constantly looking for supply, while flattering themselves and talking themselves up, talking other people down. They're superior. It's a superior type of feeling about yourself, that they're superior to other people. And I never thought I would say that Bam and Justin are similar, but they are very, very similar in terms of their personality traits, in terms of their ego, and their need for supply and fuel. And everybody is either a possession or a tool or an object. It's about using people to gain and benefit for yourself. Both Justin and Bam are both like that. Now, when it comes to the Rusex, yes, I did criticize the Rusex, and I did take part in it. I do agree with her on some things about how Frankie has operated online. The fact that he's, for years and years and years, it's just a constant quest for donations. However, I've never spoke extensively about Frankie's record or anything like that, the way that Bam did. I never called him the names that she did. And I never talked about that charge. I might have mentioned it once, but not repeatedly and frequently. And she did that because she had an agenda. And quite frankly, I just didn't share, and I think she wanted me to. I didn't share, I don't dislike the Rusex. I dislike some of Frankie's behavior over the years, but I don't have that level of dislike for them that she does. And I'm saying that to put it mildly. She's very fixated on them, and it's very strategic, and her agenda is against them was very strategic. Her affection, her great deep affection for AD, is something that kind of confuses me. But as they were going against AD, I can kind of understand it. But she seemed to have a real soft spot for AD, because she'd said many things about AD that were not positive. And yet the same things that she was saying about AD is the same thing she said about Mummy Ramblings, and yet look at the treatment she gave Mummy Ramblings as opposed to what she did with AD. I mean, she had an issue with Mummy Ramblings wanting money, and I noticed that with her as well. She didn't like other people who got donations or required donations or put their PayPal links in. She didn't like seeing other people get money. That was my so I think part of her dislike for the Rusex had a lot to do with the fact that she thought that they were getting a lot of money, over time, that they'd reaped a lot of money. So I noticed that she didn't like seeing people do that or seeing people gaining financially. She didn't like it at all. So that would give her a reason more to have dislike for somebody if she saw them that they were making money. But yeah, like I said, even though my sympathy for the R's did lessen over time, and I didn't like that Frankie was getting donations from all these different people, and because he wasn't open about Claire Morgan's situation, yes, I was very critical, but Bam went overboard with it. She went way overboard, way past anything that I had ever said or done. And that's the thing, she took it to the extreme. She took everything to the extreme. And I think with the Ali situation, that may have led up to what happened, because Ali said to herself, you know what? I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you back. And after the Ali thing, where she went on, her usual spiel on her channel, after that, Ali began actually coming to my channel. She'd been to my channel before, long before, in fact. And she started telling me some things, and then she followed through that she was gonna tell everybody what BAM was really about. And I think you can go through life going at people, but one day it may be that you just end up going after the wrong person. When she talked about me in her CP, I made an innocent little podcast about friendship, and she had taken it to mean that I was saying something about her in a negative way, which I wasn't. And she went after me. When she went after me, she got about 90-something likes. And I'm sure when she did the same with MRB, she got even more likes. So she did have her devoted supporters constantly cheering her on. And I think that's why she felt that she could continue on the path that she was continuing on. I made an innocent little podcast where I spoke mostly about cooking, didn't mention her name. And then I talked about online friendships and what I trust and what I don't trust and what I would believe and what I wouldn't, And, she got 90-something likes for the post that she wrote about me. Somebody that came to my channel this morning said that people who were there up until the end should feel a certain way. Well, this is how I look at it. It was misguided devotion to her that I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying that those people are not responsible for their own behavior. That's not what I'm saying, because they are. But I do understand how influential BAM can be. And she presents herself as this blonde, gorgeous blonde, whose channel was, supposedly a part of a country club. She presented her channel as you had to be a certain type to get in, a type of like a country club that you have to pay to get in, and that you have to be accepted, and that you have to be of a certain caliber. And, she used certain words, she used certain behaviors to make people feel that if you were accepted in her channel, that you were something special. And so in turn, it was very effective how she spoke, how she talked about herself, and how she seemed to be very much somebody who would speak up for her friends. It worked. It worked in the fact that people had a lot of devotion to her. And I think the devotion was obviously, as we now know, that it was a misguided devotion. That's all I have to say for now. I think I've spoken quite a bit about BAM over the last few weeks, and I'm probably going to give it a bit of a pause. I'm not saying I won't speak about her again. There's a lot more that I could say. I mean, this is really the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that I could say because, like I said, there's hundreds of conversations between us. And as I'm listening back to them, she does really, I'm able to pinpoint certain things. And then there's a lot more that I could share with you. But I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. I think you understand where I'm coming from. I've made it quite clear what I'm about and what I'm talking about and what I mean, and I've made it quite clear what I think.